Hello everyone! Games like Minecraft and No Man's Sky have always piqued my interest by having massive worlds, galaxies, and universes which no one person could reasonably explore all of, all thanks to procedural generation. Today, I'd like to talk about some very simple terrain generation concepts that games such as Minecraft incorporate to create their procedurally generated terrain. This will be a very simple overview, but using similar techniques, much more complicated terrain can be created. I also won't be detailing how noise such as simplex and purlin work, as my understanding is quite limited in those areas. To briefly explain the variables and functions here, x and y represents the coordinate of each tile when it is sampled against the noise. The function getNoise takes in three arguments, with the first being the noise function, which varies, however, I'll get into this later, and the other two being coordinates. The actual implementation of getNoise is unimportant. Just know that it normalizes a number in range from negative 1 to 1 to the range of 0 to 100. One quick note is that this function is one runs for each tile in a chunk. With this knowledge, we can make very simple bodies of water. We'll refer to them as lakes for now. To do this, we just check if the terrain noise value is below 20. If so, place water at the tile. Otherwise, place grass at the tile. Zooming out, you can see that the lakes are quite small, as denoted by the blue splotches. If anything, they're closer to puddles than lakes. Let's change the tolerance from 20 to 50. This should make the lakes quite a bit larger. Well, they're certainly not puddles now, and more like oceans if anything. However, I'm quite happy with the size, so we'll move on to adding sand bordering all the lakes. To implement sand, we'll check if the terrain value is anywhere from 51 to 54. If so, we will place sand at the tile. And with that, we have sand. To add some extra complexity, we can use multiple layers of noise. For example, the noise terrain is one layer, while another layer can be temperature. Temperature noise will only be used to influence the generation and will have no effect on actual gameplay. To implement temperature-based generation, we'll check if the value is above 66, which will be considered hot, below 33, which will be considered cold, and in between 33 and 36, which will be our normal terrain generation. In hot areas, we will create sandy deserts by decreasing the size of bodies of water and having no grass generate. For cold areas, we will generate bodies of water which are slightly larger than that of the desert, but smaller than our normal terrain. Additionally, we'll decrease the size of sand bordering the water, and of course, replace all the grass with snow. Finally, I'll modify some noise settings to make the temperature areas less rough and larger along the world. For the final layer of noise, I'll be generating rivers. Rivers are quite simple. All you need is to place water when the noise value is at its middle or gray areas. I implemented rivers very simply and just check if the noise value is between 40 and 50. If so, place water at that tile. Rivers also overrule all the other biome temperature and terrain constraints. Also, I modified noise settings, lowered the noise frequency to be specific, to make rivers generate much more smoothly. And while we have rivers, they're a bit too, big, and almost looks like parts of the lakes. We'll change it so that the water will only be placed if the noise value is between 40 and 44. Now, they're certainly better, but not perfect. I'll likely tweak river generation in the future to be more complex, but for now this should be enough to get the point across. Seeing these rivers is quite difficult, however, so I'll replace them with stone, which is denoted by the gray tiles. And there, now we can see our rivers. The rivers will generate in rings simply due to the noise. However, this is good enough for the game, especially if you make rivers much larger where it is simply infeasible to view the entire river. Looking into different types of noise could also be another option to generate better looking rivers. Anyhow, this is just for a project I've been working on for the past few months while I try and learn all the ins and outs of the Bevy game engine. And thanks, have a good one.